Hello, welcome to the Managing Drought in the Southern Plains webinar series, sponsored by the Southern Climate Impacts Planning Program, NOAA, the National Integrated Drought Information System, and National Drought Mitigation Center. Today's is looking at a briefing of the current status and outlook. You can see from the most recent drought monitor map that it is pretty much similar to last week in the southeast, where the extreme drought is still entrenched, and across the west where large areas of severe drought are in place. And there has been some improvement across the eastern seaboard with some rains, but there's also a little bit of deterioration across the Midwest and South Central United States, where there's this expansion of abnormally dry areas. Looking more closely at our region, we can see the extreme drought staying in place across the Big Bend area of Texas, eastern New Mexico, and parts of the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. Well, there's a large area of D0 drought, which means abnormally dry. It's not considered drought yet, but it's kind of a heads up that things are getting worse across East Texas, eastern Oklahoma, and especially across all of Arkansas. To take a look at how it changed from week to week, you can see that last week much of that area was clear, and this week it's shaded yellow for the D0. The percentage of drought that's increased has been about 20% of the areas gone into this abnormally dry, and that just means that we're looking at some potential development of drought, and we need to be paying closer attention in these areas. You can also see an area around Memphis that's expanded into the drought category at D1 drought levels. The reason for this is really short-term dryness. You can see an area, especially across Arkansas, where they received less than 10% of their normal precipitation for the last 30 days, and keeping in mind that April, May, and into June are the wettest months of the year for much of these areas. Missing that much rainfall in the beginning of the season is definitely posing a problem for some of the crops and pasture growth in the region. That's the reason the abnormally dry was added. In Arkansas, this is on, and as well as eastern Tennessee, this is on top of some longer-term dryness going back to the beginning of the year that shows up, whereas East Texas and eastern Oklahoma did get some relief earlier in the year, and they're kind of slipping back into some of the patterns, but not as bad as last year at this point. Looking ahead the next 5 days, we can see that there's not very much hope for changing this pattern across the south central United States. There's a little bit of precipitation forecast across West Texas has been the trend recently, and although these amounts are generally light, with well under an inch of rain forecast in these areas. Most of the rainfall is going across the northern plains, as well as some tropical activity along the east coast. Temperatures across the region, shown in the upper right, are generally expected to be above normal in areas, especially across West Texas and eastern New Mexico, and then the eastern parts of the region with temperatures ranging upwards of 6 or more degrees above normal average for the next few days. One of the problems associated with this is the emergence of wildfires. There have been some in Colorado. This last week, a large fire erupted in southern New Mexico. You can see on the images, the left and the right is a little bit later, showing the spread of the smoke plume across Texas and Oklahoma, which made some hazy conditions on Thursday morning. Looking at the fire weather outlook, those areas are highlighted in the western U.S. and Arizona, New Mexico, and on into Nevada. And as well as into Saturday, the purple shaded area, these fire weather conditions are expected to continue because of high winds, low humidity, and those warm temperatures we saw. Looking a little bit further ahead into the first week of June, we can see that the temperature patterns and precipitation patterns are expected to continue much as they have been recently, with above normal temperatures across the western U.S. and below normal precipitation across the western part of this region. There may be a hint of a little bit of relief, a little bit cooler weather also into Tennessee, but the general warm, dry conditions are expected to pretty much continue. As we look a little bit further ahead into the summer months, we can see that the warmth across the southern U.S. is expected to continue, and on the precipitation, it shows a lot of equal chances. This means that there aren't enough indicators to really give forecasters confidence to say one way or the other about how precipitation is going to go. And keep in mind that the shading in here represents confidence, not necessarily magnitude. So where you see the darker colors, it just means that forecasters are more certain that temperatures in Arizona and New Mexico will be above normal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be that much above normal compared to, say, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas. Those areas are still all expected to be above normal. We just can't say how much. Looking at the drought outlook, it shows some improvement in the southwest associated with development of the monsoon this time of year, especially in Arizona, extending probably into New Mexico. A little less confident there. That's why it's shaded in that way. But elsewhere, drought is expected to be pretty much remain entrenched. Some improvement in the southeast U.S. associated with tropical convection, hurricanes, and such, and sea breeze effects from thunderstorms. The area that we showed where drought was, or D0 was expanded, is not in here because they only do the forecast based on what was at that time. So check the next drought outlook for those areas that will show whether they think drought will persist in those regions or not. As always, we put this information as well as a lot of other information from these past webinars and drought forums we've held across the region up on the websites, the U.S. Drought Portal in the Southern Plains section on the upper left menu. You can find a lot of this information. We also really need to hear what's going on, especially these areas where it's getting dry. If you're having impacts, it's important to let us know because it helps us focus on where we need to look at information in a lot more detail. It's a large area to cover, so please use the Drought Impact Reporter, contact your state climatologist, or send Skip or Clemus an email, and we'll help working on that. So if you have any questions, please contact us, and you can go to the southernclimate.org website to register if you want to receive this information about these briefings directly. Our next webinar will be June 14th, which will have a full discussion topic associated with it, still to be determined. Thank you, and have a great week.